Hello, my name is James Black, and there's been a lot of discussion over the decade or so that Bitcoin has been out about blockchains. I have other videos which I'll put in the description below that talk about the underlying ideas behind blockchains, but for this what I want to do is actually want to go up a lot and look at if we had a lot of our platforms were decentralized, what would that look like for a person to live in a decentralized world? Now, in these examples, I am not going to be talking at all about the financial industries because, as we saw with so many of the frauds that have taken place, they're very easy to lose all of your money. So we're not going to be. I'm not going to be talking about that. I will do that in a later video. It'll be a much longer discussion. This one is actually we're going to be following this guy named Tom as he goes through his life. He's going to pick a college. He's going to want to go dating. He's going to want to find a job, get married, buy a house, get health insurance, and then selling news articles. This is his journey going through when it's decentralized. Now, you don't have to have a blockchain to do decentralization. It has certain advantages, but it's not required. And these blockchains are not public. So not everyone can get the blockchain, if there is one, for each of these platforms. And these are not free, so every user is going to have to pay a fee to be added to be able to get access to these different. In a lot of cases, I use blockchains, and every post you put on there or every time you interact, there's going to be a small fee added. Because again, we go back to what we see with a lot of social media. If you don't have to pay for a product, then you are the product. And the data is shared by the top level entity. So in this case, Tom is sharing his information with different systems, but he owns all of the data himself. So we'll start with trying to find a college. So in this case, right now, obviously, our higher education is very centralized. Each university, you go there, you say, okay, well, I want to get I want to get a degree, and they will, in most cases, walk you through. They control everything about that experience. But in a decentralized way, and you saw this with New College before DeSantis destroyed that institution. But you would work with an advisor to design a degree based on your personal goals. You would find appropriate courses online or in person, and labs require specialized equipment. So what becomes important here is I may want to get part of my degree from this university, but I want to go over here to get another part of it. So my physics, I might go to MIT. My economics class, I may want to go to Stanford. Or I may want to take a small business class somewhere else. English, I could go to Chicago. So the idea being that I don't have to get everything in one place. So a lot of this is based on the idea that there's going to be a lot of machine learning involved. So, for example, Tom is going to go to a application, or he'll have it on his phone most likely, that will be his entry into this world. And then he may have talk to an advisor. It may be a physical advisor, it may be a machine learning system, but there may be someone there to help guide him on this journey. And then there's something that I'm calling aggregators, and they will pull in a lot of information depending on what it is that they need to do. So, for example, this aggregator is pulling in job postings by industry. So, you may want to know what the company job requirements are, the location, the job description. You want to figure out what it is that, what type of job are you looking for? What is your goal? And for college, jobs can be a big part of that. Um, you also have company aggregators, so you could be, which is feeding into this job posting one. So these aggregators, they're almost like small Google search engines. They just pull in a lot of data, but very specialized. And then they can be used by higher level ones to make it more general. That's going to become important. So just that way you have a way to be able to have data in a format that you can use. And then so you have an aggregator for like different colleges, for example. Um, and then you may have one for, so like Yale and Stanford, for example, would be in this aggregator for colleges about courses. Um, Professional organizations may have an aggregator, so like IEEE or the um, ones for medical doctors, for example. And then specialized societies may have an aggregator, such as Mensa, for example. So there's a lot of data that's available to this machine learning system that it's been trained. So when you sit there and say, okay, so this is what I would like to do. So imagine talking to something like ChatGPT and saying, I want to be able to have a job where I can be a social media personality and I can grow my own brand. And that's all you really know. Okay, so it will then look through what it knows and it can say, here's some different jobs that are available for that. Here's courses. It can help you start to tease out what it is you want to do. And you work with an advisor so you can make certain that you have, okay, here's where I'm going. Here's my course list. Here you work it out with the university as to I want to have this person teach me. Um, where it gets tricky is what does it mean if it, how can you say that something is accredited? So for example, to be a civil engineer, you need to have gone through an accredited school. You need to have learned certain things in order to say, yes, I've learned what it takes. And what it may end up coming down to is that rather than worrying about accreditation, it may be that you have to take certain tests in order to be able to show that you have learned enough. It's almost like apprentice, journeyman, master kind of ideas, where you would just have to go through these tests. It's kind of like taking the bar, I guess, to say you learned at least enough to show minimal knowledge. So, but the idea being that you can kind of pick your own degree, your own approach. So you don't just have someone that is a business major. They will have taken classes that will have shaped what their future goals are and how they want to present themselves as a brand to other people. But that would be an idea of how we could decentralize education, for example. So now Tom, while he's been going through doing his education, he decides that he wants to date. So now, right now, if you go to Hinge or Tinder or Match or any of those, they have all of your data. They can share it with whomever they want. They can market you. They can aggregate all the data they have from people, and they can sell it to marketing firms, for example. We see this a lot, for example, with Facebook and Twitter. I expect is doing it also. A lot of the social media businesses do this. So the idea is, with it being decentralized, you control your own data. So they don't actually own anything. So, for example, there will be a blockchain where there's a user profile. Now, this is going to be a, I don't know if it'd be a state thing. There'd be probably some government entity that will help to ensure that each person has a profile. This is the person's, this is for this type of information, this is the person's information. So that way that's how people know who you are. You could have usernames in there, you could have aliases, you could have different names, but they all tie back to a record ultimately. So what Tom will do is he'll sit there and say, okay, well, when I go to Match, that's where I want to try and find someone to I want to find a study buddy, or I want to find someone to go on walks with, or I want to find um, someone to play sports with. So what he'll do is he can then pick which pictures. So like he may have some photos in S3, he may have some in Google Drive, but he'll make those available to the different dating platforms. But they only have access while he gives them access. So that's why there's an access blockchain. And there's smart contracts. That's what the little SC is. These are all driven by smart contracts. So what you'll do is Tom will sit there and say, for this directory, for this folder of pictures, I want to make it available to Tinder. And Tinder can then go to, when they go to get the pictures, because they're not storing them, they would then go to the access blockchain, look at the smart contract, make certain that, because everything is encrypted. So if Tinder tries to just go there directly, they'll just, first of all, they don't know where the directory is. They have to go through a different system like the access blockchain to even be able to get access. So the access blockchain will end up going to these places for on that kind of on that person's behalf, and it knows how to decrypt the image to then make it available to them. So now it could be that the image will be on that system for a small amount of time. There could be different ways that you could make it to where they don't always have to go back to S3 or Google Drive. It could be on some intermediate system that's still protected and still requires access through the access blockchain. So it could have its own database, for example, to help cache some of this information for a short period. But the idea being that the companies no longer own your data. You control your data. So when users search in Match, for example, they will find, they can look at any relevant matches and they can see information that you wanted to share. So it makes it a lot, it makes it a lot different of an experience because you're just seeing what the person wanted to share, and it may be based on their relationship to you, where they may say, okay, so if you're searching for me initially, you may see these 5 photos. Once we start to make a connection, I may want to share additional photos with you, or I may want to share additional posts with you. The It's a dynamic relationship between what the users could see and Tom. So that would be that's decentralized, because at the end of the day, all these platforms are doing now is they're providing a service. So they may have other applications running in the background to try and entice people to use their platform instead of using a different platform. So they may end up also more specializing in the kind of users that will go to that site. But that's how the dating area could be um, decentralized. Now, Tinder, Match, and Hinge, for example, they may they will have the access blockchain. They will be holding on to it. It's not a separate entity. It's shared between them, and all the other dating apps platforms can also be participating in this. So it's a private blockchain that is being used. But again, these smart contracts and the fact that a lot of the data is encrypted means that they can't take advantage and see what's in there directly. It has to go through, and it has to make sure that they have permission. So even though I show it as a separate little circle, it's actually being kind of mutually shared. They all have a copy of it, so it gets updated as the users you give access. So then we're going to be looking for a job. A big deal. And you'll start seeing similarities in all of this, by the way. But so Tom will be talking to a machine learning system, like something like a chat GPT, and saying, I want to be able to do a job I want to work with as a social media consultant for football teams, for example. And this machine learning system will have learned about, will have access to, um, it knows about you, first of all, because it knows about your education, knows about your life experiences, because this machine learning system is more like on your phone, so it knows a lot more information about you. And then it may reach out to different recruiter blockchains. So there might be a certain recruiters that are more for sporting team events, or and so it can reach out to find the recruiters that may be the best choice for you, for what you're looking for. It also knows about your portfolio. So if you're a developer, you may have code on GitHub, Kaggle. It'll have access to your resumes, and those might be on Indeed and LinkedIn. Again, all of these, much like the Tinder and Hinge thing, they don't actually own the data. They don't control it anymore. It's all just been shared with them. So you'll see it's kind of like a really big web. And then you may also find there might be a computer science startup blockchain, for example, where people that are more likely to be, where companies that are doing startups that are computer science related might be in there. So this machine learning system will then take in all of this different information and make it available and say, okay, here's some jobs you may want to apply to. And then as you do some back and forth and you work with the recruiters, they may connect you with the companies that are actually of interest. So again, everything is driven by the fact that Tom controls his information. And we have the data is stored in different places in ways that aggregators can then put together and make available to these machine learning applications. Okay, so then you want to get married. Um, Getting married or doing any big event requires a lot of planning. And so you may want to have, for example, Tom is going to set up a wedding registry somewhere. Now, he may have where some of the items can come from Amazon, some can come from Target, some can come from, he likes the plushies from Bob's Big Boy restaurant for whatever reason. So he's going to be working on that. And again, he'll have a wedding machine learning system. So that way it can help to kind of be his assistant to help keep track of everything. So you sit there and say, okay, well, I want to, you'll also be working with a wedding planner and they may have a blockchain set up so that they can keep track of everything for your event. And so then the wedding planner um, for example, they may be keeping track of the wedding planner, the florist, the photographer, the baker, the venue, and the wedding party. Um, so what you end up having is you end up having lots of little islands of data that are very specific to um, time and place, I guess. And once these things are over with, they can go away. They don't have to lay around forever. Just because I'm calling it a blockchain, when Tom is done with his wedding and he's gotten all his pictures off of there, and he's gotten whatever he needs, he could delete it. He's done with it. He can move on. Because remember, he's paying for some of this. So you don't leave it around. And then the wedding registry, like I show, you could have store one, store two. Um, so but all of the planning, all of the organizing has been decentralized. It's no longer all in the hands of the wedding planner. Tom still has a very active role in trying to make certain they can keep track of where everything is. Um, but you're also not micromanaging. That's what your machine learning system would do, is micromanage this for you. But that's the idea, is to have that. So now this one's actually pretty simple in that now we want to look at buying a house. So you'll have a title blockchain, which a lot of places are working on trying to get something like that. So you could know exactly who owns the title to a property. Um, you have the bank, again, that's centralized in this case for security's sake. But Tom is going to talk to his machine learning advisor. I want to buy a house. I want it to be this many bedrooms. I want it to be roughly so far from here. Because again, your machine learning advisor knows about where your job is, so it can help to figure out what would be most appropriate. And so then it will talk to the home listing blockchain. It could be an aggregator, it could be a number of things. But much like Zillow or MLS, you just have a lot of listings in here. Now, the thing is that, like, for example, all the images of the homes, they're going to be in iCloud or S3 or Google Drive or whatever else you want to use for your images. you have to go through an access database. So what you do is the realtor can put information into the home listing blockchain so you can look at it. The realtor also has access to the pictures. So users can then they can then make the realtor can then make get access to the pictures if the owner of that home has given the realtor access to do that. So they could say, okay, so here's these 20 pictures of my house. I want to let you can make 5 of these available to other places for the home listing. If people want more information, want to see more pictures, they can talk to me. I can give them access. So the you kind of can give some access to people about some of your information, but at the end of the day, you can always pull it all back and say, okay, well, now this is mine. Now, there's nothing, because it's all in a digital format, ultimately, for example, pictures, I could take a photo of um, with my camera, and you can't stop people from being able to do that. So this is not a guaranteed way to say, well, now no one can steal anything. That doesn't solve this problem. But and then you just go through, you figure out, okay, so I found the house I want to buy. Tom talks to the bank. The bank gets information from the realtor. They also have Tom has already verified about the title and made certain that the seller actually owns that title, and then they can complete their purchase, for example. And then now we're looking at something that's a little bit harder. Is you want to have a health insurance network. So, for example, each family will pay to the bank. Um, and like I said, because it's going to be, I'm using a centralized bank because a financial decentralized entity is out of scope. Um, a smart contract will send instructions on when to pay and how much. So this gets a little bit trickier. So you're in a neighborhood of 1,000 homes, for example. So everyone pays $500 a month into this for their health insurance. So what's going to happen is you have a blockchain that's showing each person has made payments. Now everyone in the neighborhood can see what money is you'll be able to see certain information. You'll be able to see that people have been getting payments for having make it. There's going to be some information available to the neighborhood just because you want to have some level of transparency without leaking who has what illness. You don't want to know that Joe down the road has diabetes, for example. You don't want that level of specificity, but you may want to know that um, you're spent that because Joe has a very sedentary life, he is also he's getting ill more often, for example. Or Martha, 5 houses down, she ends up breaking her legs a lot or breaking a lot of bones because of her skydiving addiction. So this becomes important because the more that you spend, the more that people have to pay in to this health insurance. So you will have doctor contacts will have access to this blockchain. Um, you'll also have an aggregator, um, so that So the doctor contacts are all in the aggregator is going to be these are the doctors that we can that can have access to our blockchain. And it may be that initially you're going to say, okay, well, we just want to have a few businesses that we go to, and over time we can improve on that. But this requires, and that's what the MD contact is for, really, is there will be certain people in the neighborhood that have medical experience that can then help. They could see more detail. They could see who is getting what treatments. Mainly because you're going to need to have some way to be able to do approval. As you start working through this process, you'll start seeing that prior approvals may become part of what you need to do. Because you may find that certain procedures don't seem to be as useful as they used to be. So you may want prior approval to say, well, based on current medical understanding, we no longer need to do that. We could just jump to this next level of treatment. So why do we want to do this earlier one? And then the doctor would have to explain why to do something that the rest of the establishment inside isn't as useful. So you may end up having to have some back and forth discussions. So that person, like it might be a nurse or a doctor or something, will be involved in helping to make sure that people are getting the appropriate care and that the neighborhood is not being fleeced by unscrupulous professionals. But what this also does is now you're invested in your neighborhood, in your neighbor's health. So, for example, you may have the neighborhood may decide, we're going to have a walking club, we're going to have a running club, we're going to have we're going to have a softball team or a soccer team. We're going to do things to get people to be exercising more as a community. Or we're going to have a big barbecue, a block party, and we're going to have CVS come down with their mobile van and give everyone flu shots for free. Because, over time, people have realized that if you get flu shots, you're less likely to have a serious interaction with the flu. The neighborhood could decide to do that. But now you're sitting there and you're looking out for your neighbors. So what this would do is you're kind of being nosy in some ways, but you're more concerned about what's happening with your neighbors. Because if you could save money